Good night, brothers and sisters, everyone who's going to be joining me for this live teaching tonight. This is the third and final night of our study of the Signs of the Times, Matthew chapter 24. And so I'm just going to wait for y'all to get up on in here so that we can go through this passage and truly continue to enjoy all the meat that it has for us. Good evening, Brother Craig Hahn. It's very nice to have you once again. Sister Diana Wedderburn, it's such a pleasure to see you. Very faithful. It says so much how you enjoy the word. Pastor Kevin Palmer, nice to see you, bro. God bless you. Hope you had a good day. And of course, Big Sissy Pooh Joan Hutchinson, nice to have you. Thank God for y'all. It's been what a day it's been. But there's so much to be thankful for. God has been so good in preserving our life, in spite of the circumstances that exist around us. He continues to be good. We can continue to trust in his sovereignty. Brother Eric Wenberg, nice to have you, sir. I do hope that you enjoy tonight's teaching. I think it's my first time seeing you. I'm not so sure, but it seems so. If you would like to catch up with the previous verses, you can either find them on my page or you can find them on YouTube. After I do them here, I usually upload them on YouTube for the YouTube audience who are not on Facebook, and for keepsake as well, to have to look back over, etc. Nice to have all of y'all. Thank you so much, Joan. Really appreciate you. You're such a tremendous support for me and the family and everybody else. Good night, Brother Clayton Morgan. How you doing, sir? I hope you are doing well and that you had a great day. I must say, though, as just before we get into what we're talking about this evening, that I am so grateful for your prayers and support and encouragements, especially in light of the events that occurred today with my son. It's been a blessing. He's coming on well. They are not here at the moment. They are actually by grandma because he has to go to the hospital early in the morning. So she preferred him to stay close enough. And then tomorrow I'll get, Kalia, but Kylie will stay for the next couple of days because he has several visits to do. So this week will be a little hectic, but, can do all things. God can strengthen me. I see my cousin, Pastor Collie Theok, all the way from the Bahamas. Nice to have you, cuz. It's always a pleasure to have you, to see you. I hope that you and the family are doing well and that you are enjoying your little man. I hope you really doing well, cuz. Say hello to Sister Vanessa for me. Sister Dion Douglas, how are you doing, sis? Nice to see you again. And of course, Sister Douglas, this is your Pastor Gino. So as I said last time, you better catch all of these. You can't miss it because you were the one who requested it, and that's why we're doing it. So I hope you have been enjoying them, and what you wanted to understand more better, you would have from this passage. Next week, though, I am so excited about next week. Next week is going to be just wonderful. For next week, y'all are going to have to give this preacher a pulpit. I'm telling you, Matthew 13 is so exciting. The parables, OMG, they are so exciting. We're going to be looking at beginning in the next week. Straight to when they are finished, we're going to look at the parables, how they speak about the gospel and the kingdom of God. They are phenomenal. So many facets and things to dig up from them. I know y'all are going to enjoy them. Sister Helen, nice to have you there. Yes, Pastor Palmer, God bless you, sir. God bless you. Sam Brown, nice to have you, big brother. Nice to have you. Nice to see all of you. And of course, feel free to share these videos so that others who are not friends of mine can see them. People do appreciate things like this where they can hear the word of God. They can be inspired, they can be blessed, they can learn a lot, so feel free to share them so that they can always have them to access and can learn from them. So yeah, just before we go on, it has been a hectic day. That crazy accident with Kylie. He cooks all the time, since about maybe 7 or something. He knows how to cook well in terms of the little things he can do. So every other morning he alternates between what he wants, and so usually they wake up before me, and so while I'll be sleeping, they'll be making their breakfast and everything is fine. Sometimes they have eggs, they love eggs. At times they make their cereal or whatever they feel for. But this morning just was crazy, man. And if I tell y'all, it's just so interesting that I rarely remember things that I dream. And last night, I don't know why, but I had this dream, that I was having a heart attack. And it was crazy. I was calling for Kamal, you know, and she wasn't there, and I was saying, God, please don't let me die, because if I die, or something happens, the kids are here, no one else is here, I'm the only adult, and who's gonna take care of them, and all of that. And that actually woke me up. I was shocked out of the dream as a result of that. And then went to the bathroom and, to brush my teeth, wash my face to get the day rolling. And perhaps 4 to 5 minutes thereafter, I had seen Kyle and Kalia, they hugged me, the morning usuals. And then I just heard him crying, Daddy, Daddy, and Leah going frantic. And I rushed downstairs to see what's up. And he was just holding his hand. And it's the oil splash from the forearm up to the wrist. And I sought to wipe some of the oil off, and the skin just peel off on my hand, and it was crazy. So I was about to get into panic mode, but then I know, of course, that I can't panic. Those of you who've been following me all know that because of the heart condition, I can't panic, because when I have panic attacks, then there are seizures and other issues, and I'm the only adult here, and I don't know if they'll be able to alarm anybody. So I had to be breathing hard, keep it together. I quickly called mother-in-law, what to do. He's burned, what to do. She told me to put his hand in water and keep it there to cool it off. So I kept it in water and all of that, still trying to figure out what to do. Brush my teeth quickly, put on a shirt, put on a pants, this, that, and, and quickly get him dressed and rush out. Driving there is about 1 hour away to hospital. It's 1 hour of Jamaican bad road, the part where I live. So you can't speed and in no time reach there. You have to take your time, or you're gonna mash your car right up or potentially get an accident. And I'm there. I could feel the panic trying to come on, but I said, God, you gotta keep this together. You gotta keep this together. And I had to be breathing hard and deep and talking to them and just keeping us calm and making sure they're all right. And after I wrap up the hand and everything to take him, and went to the hospital, and thank God, got through. Everything is fine. They gave him some shots and some medication stuff he has to be taken, and to visit for the next 4 to 5 days to keep cleaning it up every day, and it should be all right from there. So yeah, I thank God for that. I quickly called on June as well, to call up our friends to pray and to seek God's face for us on this matter. A lot of people don't believe in prayer. That's fine, but believers, Christians, we do believe in prayer, and we do know that there exists power in prayer. And so I'm grateful for that, their support. They check up on us every so often. So yeah, it's been an eventful day, but thank God that He has kept us. Here I am, back on the grind for the Lord. And I hope that the sacrifices that are being made, y'all are enjoying them. And of course, I call on you to keep my family in prayer. Kamal is a little stressed out from the situation. And of course, she's so far away and can't be here. So I've had to be, consoling her as well. So keep us in prayer that God will keep everything all right. He'll give us the strength to endure whatever it is that will happen. Because, we trust in His sovereignty. I'm not afraid of issues and danger and dying. Y'all know that already. Nothing frightens me, but with respect to the family, these things kind of hit you a certain way. And so just keep us in prayer that God covers us and keeps us, so I could be around as long as I would want to be for the ministry, as well as to be a blessing to my family and to so many of you. So thank you very much everyone for joining. Sister Gwen Sumlin, Eric Pittman, Pastor Delvin Ferris, all of you, Mark McGee, Josiah Bent, thank you all for joining. Those who will be joining, God bless you as well, and let's hope that you'll have a good time. So let's get right to it, brothers and sisters. So Matthew 24 verses 37 to 51. This is the as I said, the final portion in this passage, in this study, and we are continuing to look at the signs of the last days that this passage talks about with respect to Jerusalem and its last days, and these last days we have been living in for the past 2,000 years. Nice to have you, a wise man, Brother Adrian. Nice to have you, sir. I hope that you are blessed by this as well. So, quick recap. Last night we saw what it meant when he said, pray that your flight don't be in the winter or on the Sabbath day. The exigencies of those situations would not be favorable for the people, and so they had to pray that when it's time to flee happens on a favorable time and season of the year, so that they're able to flee. We saw he warned again about false Christs and false prophets, how because the tribulation would be so great for them that if God had not shortened the days or does not do it, no flesh would be saved, but for the elect's sake, whom he does not want to suffer a certain way, he shortens the days so that they can be saved. And then the sign of the Son of Man, he's going to come visibly. It's not going to be anything secret that anyone has to tell you, come here, come there. You're going to, if you're alive, you're going to see the visible signs of the Son of Man for yourselves. He's going to send his angels to gather his people. We saw that the fig tree was to be a parable for them, essentially, just as it began to sprout. Summer is there. So he said, so too, when you see these things are happening, know that the time is at hand. This generation of verse 34 was a reference to that specific generation, a span of 40 years. And that led to, up to 70 AD, the fall of Jerusalem. And then he assured us that heaven and earth will pass away before his words pass away. It will happen, and that we ought not to think that anyone can know the certainty of the day and hour when he's coming. The angels don't even know that, only the Son of Man. The Father, rather, knows that he's reserved that for himself. And so we ought not concern ourselves about days, times, and years with respect to the second coming of Christ. When he's going to come, he's going to come. Just be ready all the time. All right. Just want to hail Pastor Jason LaPlanche. Nice to have you, sir. Sister Grace Wilson. Nice to have y'all. So let's get to it. So in verse 37, Jesus says, but as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. So he wants us then to study and understand the days of Noah. And of course, not to get much into apologetics here, but the fact that, a lot of people don't believe in the flood and Noah and they existed. But the fact that Jesus referred to this, to that event as a historical fact and event, tells us that it was a reality. It was not just a mere myth or story that was used for whatever purpose, but it was an actual historical event. That is how Jesus uses it here. A quick apologetic nugget there. He says, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man will be. And explain for us what he means by that. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered the ark. And so the events that led up to the flood, if you read Genesis chapters 6 and 7, you would see how scripture describes how the antediluvians, the people before the flood, there was the sons of God, who a lot have posited to be angels, who were intermarrying with humans, human women, taking wives of all which they chose. And of course, humans were marrying other humans as well. And The wickedness increased. There were Nephilim in the earth in those days. The Hebrew says, we saw where it spoke about the imagination of the thoughts of man's heart was evil continually. So everything that they thought about was how to outdo, how to the survival of the fittest, how to rob, how to steal, how to connive, how to be more greedy, essentially, and to abuse and kill their fellow man. That is how Genesis describes the antediluvian world. They were extremely wicked, and God gave them a span of time. He said 120 years, essentially. And some have posited that to be that's the time period that Noah preached and preparing the ark with his family and warning the first world, the antediluvians, of the flood to come. But instead of giving heed to Noah, they continued with life as usual. They were getting up and eating, drinking, having their parties and orgies. I mean, you name it, just enjoying life. Whoever loved their football, I'm only modernizing to make a point. It's not like these things existed or that we know it for sure. I'm using things that are familiar to us to make a point. So those who love their football, their soccer, the American football, all the various games, they were consumed with life's activities. Clubbing when they want to club, just enjoying their life. They couldn't care less, just trying to get ahead and just doing their thing. They were marrying and giving in marriage. And so they were marrying each other and they were being given in marriage. Life for them essentially continued as before. The various signs perhaps that were happening, telling them that something is coming. They couldn't care about that. They were living. Life was continuing as before. And Christ is saying when, he's coming, life will be continuing for people as usual. Despite the fact that a lot of signs will be, obvious around us. That's why Jesus says, we have to be wise. And as we observe the signs and the things that are going on, we must be cautious. But people will see, earthquakes increasing with intensity and frequency. They will see floods and famines and all sorts of immorality being pushed out there. And for them, it's just life as usual. Nothing serious, nothing special. This coronavirus, I mean, our lives were continuing. We had no clue it was coming, but here it is. It just pounced upon us. Jesus says, just as it was in the time of Noah, life was continuing as before. People were consumed with the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. They were consumed with the next job, the degree, and again, I'm just using familiar terms and things to make a point. They were continuing with their sexing. They were continuing with their wickedness and immorality and all of the things that they were doing. But when Noah went into the ark, Jesus says, they did not know until the flood came. Noah entered into the ark with his family and the animals as God would have told them. Perhaps a miracle may have even occurred where they would have seen the animals just coming and following Noah into the ark, allowing him to guide them into the ark. Now think about it. At this time, you have lions and bears and these ferocious animals who perhaps were not mingling much with humans, are coming from various parts of the world and the civilization then to enter the ark for them to be saved and preserved. You have birds flying from various terrains and quarters to come into the ark. And people were so consumed with daily life and the grind of daily life and their pleasures and life as usual, they did not see this as anything special. Can you believe it? It's the same thing today. I mean, look how many things have been going on, disasters, and life as usual. These things happen, these things come. Jesus says, when he's about to come back, things will essentially be going on as usual, and people will be consumed and distracted with a everyday grind as usual. But the flood came, took them all away. So shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. And so Jesus essentially is saying here, he can come at a day and hour no one is aware of, and life will be going on as usual. I mean, right now, our lives, despite the coronavirus, yes, some things are halted, but we're still pushing and grinding as usual. Jesus can come. We can be at church, worshiping, in prayer, sleeping, at work, commuting somewhere, driving. Things in life will be going on as usual, and then Jesus can come just like that. And so, beloved friends, that is why as believers we ought not to get fanatical, about certain things and looking for dates and times and specific, laws to be passed as indications that Jesus is coming, because life and nature and activities will be going on as usual for most of the world. And then he's just going to come. This is what he says here. And because of that, he says, we ought to be in a state of readiness. So it was when the flood came and washed them away that they realized it was too late. He says it's the same way the Son of Man is going to come. And then he says, two shall be in the field, the one shall be taken and the other left. Two women shall be grinding at the mill, the one shall be taken and the other left. These are two texts that individuals often use to think they are supporting the notion of a secret rapture, secrecy, Jesus coming in silence, to take one away and somebody's left behind. Jerry B. Jenkins and Tim LaHaye, their entire Left Behind series is essentially based on, these two passages right here, one taken and the other left. But this is not talking with respect to a secret rapture. Two men in the field, one taken, the other left. Now you have to keep in mind as we go through these verses together that this is both describing Jerusalem's destruction as well as the end of the world just before Jesus comes. And so the taking away here is not talking about some secret rapture. In the context of Jerusalem and the ancient world, and of course we know it's the Roman armies that came and destroyed Jerusalem. When a king comes with his army to conquer a city, a state, or wherever, a castle, you name it, it's never in their best interest to completely wipe out everybody who is there. The only way they would often do that is if, they were a vassal and they want to completely wipe them out because they're posing themselves a threat or they're not meeting their end of the bargain. But generally, it's never in the king's best interest to completely wipe out his captors, people he's trying to keep in captivity or conquer, basically. And so when they would sack a city, a country, or wherever, what they would actually do is when they would have killed the army or most of the army, or when the army would have surrendered, they'd go through the city or country or whatever it is that they are seeking to conquer, and they would take away the individual who looks the strongest, who looks the fittest and the best, to work for them, to come and build their empire, to enrich their kingdom. It's never in their best interest to destroy everybody. They conquer to amass their power and control and wealth. And so what they would actually do is take one person or however much, they would take the best from among the natives to either be as their slaves, to go teach them their ways and their customs, and to enrich their kingdom. And they would leave the frail and the old and the poor so that they can maintain the city that was just conquered, so that they can levy taxes and stuff like that from them. This is what this is talking about here. One will be taken, whether it is for death, and sometimes they would take them to go kill them if they think that they would pose a threat or they would pose resistance. One will be taken for the purpose of the captor, and another would be left. And this is exactly what the Romans did with Jerusalem. 2 women grinding at the mill. And of course, the mill here is where they used to grind grain, wheat, rye, barley, make cornmeal, all of that. 2 women grinding at the mill. Jesus is using what they're familiar with. One will be taken for the purpose of the captor, and the other left behind to actually maintain the city that was just conquered so that it can be taxed, etc. That is what he means here. This is not supporting some secret rapture. Now, with respect to the second application, it would actually mean those who are believers would be taken for the purpose of Christ, for heaven, for glory, while those who are left behind will actually be left for judgment and destruction. That is what it would mean with its parousia, the second coming of Christ application. And with Jerusalem, it's actually mean taken for the purpose of the captor, whether to work and to enrich the empire, and one is left to maintain the little that is left to be the subjects of their captors, etc. He goes on to say in verse 42, watch therefore, for you know not what hour your Lord is coming. So Jesus is saying here, life will apparently be going on as usual. People will be going about with their daily grind. People will be distracted by everything this world and this life has to offer, instead of focusing on the things that are of transcendent value. And so because this will be going on, it's very easy for his people to get distracted by the daily grind and what's going on too, and therefore are not cognizant of what is going on around them, and to live their lives in such a way that they are focused on the kingdom and kingdom building, rather than just trying to get big, massive, and wealthy here. So Jesus says we need to be alert because we don't know when he's coming. The disciples then needed to be alert. Believers today need to live in a state of alertness, not alarmistic now, but alertness that my life, the paradigm with which I live, I'm living to please God. In the pursuit of my degree, and again, this is not telling us we must just pauperize, sit in a corner, don't pursue higher education, don't start a business, don't start a family. This is not what the passage is saying. He's saying we must live in such a way with a paradigmatic shift that people, in opposition rather to people who are consumed with the daily grind, we know that we are citizens of the kingdom of God, and therefore all our lives, goal, and pursuits are in alignment with building up the kingdom. Even as we pursue our careers, we pursue our degrees, we seek to build our families, we engage in charity work, we engage in whatever kind of employment, we're always conscious of the fact that we belong to the Lord. He can come anytime, and I am occupying until he comes. And this world, this here and now, is not all there is to life and existence. This is not all to my life. The bachelor's that I've just earned, it's not all to my life. It's something to help to be used to advance the kingdom of God. The job that God has given me, the church, the family, the career I'm pursuing it to bring honor and glory to God. And I live with the consciousness that I could be at work, enjoying life, eating food, having a child, sick in a hospital, or even 6 feet under. Jesus can come. Are you listening to me, brothers and sisters? So Jesus is actually saying here, believers should live with the consciousness and the paradigm shift that they always belong to God, and that the kingdom of heaven and the second coming of Christ should be the signature, right? It should be the center of gravity around which everything about their lives and their pursuits revolve. This is what Jesus is saying. And so we live with in a state of alertness, a state of consciousness that I'm not to get distracted with the world and the things it's offering and the things that people are doing. But amidst my enjoying life, amidst my pursuing a career, amidst my business pursuits, amidst my job, amidst all that I'm doing, I live for God. I belong to Him. And I must use all of these things to bring Him honor and glory, even as I take care of my family, as I enjoy life, as I seek to help people. This is what Jesus is saying here, essentially. Be alert. Don't get distracted. Keep this as the center of attraction in your life, so that you will not be caught off guard when things are happening. And then in verse 43, he says, but know this, that if the good man of the house had known and would watch the thief would come, he would have watched and would not have suffered his house to be broken up. And so he uses again another cultural illustration. You see, back in those days, when a thief is coming, he's not going to send them an emissary. He's not going to send a letter and say, hey, be prepared, 9 p.m. this month, this day, this year, I'm coming, I'm going to rob everything. If you pose a threat or a challenge, I'm going to kill you. Are you following me, beloved? When thieves come to rob, they pounce unannounced. They pounce unannounced. They just come. And so whether you're prepared or not, when a thief is coming, he's coming. And that is why, throughout the New Testament, in the eschatological passages, Paul, Peter, Jude, everyone, when they use this sort of terminology, and to tie it into the second coming of Christ, they always says the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. They come in the night when it's dark and people are caught off guard. They just pounce unannounced. Thieves don't tell you when they're coming to rob you. But if you know you live among thieves who can rob you at any time, you take all the necessary precautions to ensure that your family, your friends, your possessions, your valuables, they are secure, they are protected, and you can defend yourself at any moment. This is what Jesus is talking about. So the same way you would not know when a thief is coming, but you are always prepared. This is what you ought to do with respect to my coming. And so he says, if the good man of the house would have known in what watch of the night the thief would come, the good man would have kept watch. He would have been alert, and he would not suffer his house to be broken up. If he takes no precautions, does not build a fence, does not sharpen his machete and all of the tools and weaponry they had in those days to prepare for that eventuality, the thief would come. He's unexpected. He's vulnerable to be killed. His family, his animals and livestock, his goods and possessions to be stolen. His house broken up, mashed down, because depending on the number of thieves who band together and come to destroy. So Jesus says, don't allow yourselves to be taken off guard. Always be in a state of readiness. And we as believers in the Lord Jesus Christ, when we live for Him, we are in Him. We live for His honor and glory. We are in a state of readiness. And we should not allow ourselves to get distracted by the mundane things around us and the things that we are trying to pursue and accomplish in this life. That's what he's talking about. So he says in verse 44, therefore be ye also ready. For in such an hour as you do not think, the Son of Man comes. Again, Jesus can come any moment, instantaneously. When we least expect, beloved friends, he can come. He comes unexpectedly. The day of the Lord can come unexpectedly. Life and situations will be going on as usual. Famines, earthquake, diseases, death, funerals, church services, people pursuing their careers, people are enjoying themselves, are having pleasures and all of that. Things will be going on as it were, as usual. And then, boom, unexpectedly, Jesus puts in his appearance. Now, let me just throw something out there. You know, especially for those who have these eschatological events that they say must happen before Jesus comes back. You know, for a lot of people, for them, there must be a one world order, one world government, one world religion before Jesus is able to come back. For some, there has to be this Sunday law that starts with America and then passes on to the rest of the entire world before Jesus is able to come back. For some, there must be a time of trouble where a specific group of people will be persecuted by the rest of the world for the things they believe before Jesus can come. For some, rather, the mark of the beast, you know, which they have understood or interpreted to be microchips being put in the skin of everybody, in their foreheads or their hands. These things must happen before Jesus is able to come back. And therefore, with their interpretations of eschatological things, they hold Jesus' coming hostage to mark of the beast, Sunday law, one world government, or whatever sort of eschatological events and happenings that their system says must happen before Jesus is able to come back. So Jesus is held hostage. The parousia is held hostage by a Sunday law, by microchips, by one world religion, by one world order in a lot of people's theology. But according to Jesus here, he says, I can come at any moment. In other words, a Sunday law, a microchip, a one world government is not what's going to be the absolute sign and harbinger that will usher in my coming. Jesus can come at any moment, beloved friends. Now, this may sound very radical to some of you, but this is what he's saying. You know, and that is why you ought to be very careful how you interpret certain eschatological things. You mustn't just jump on bandwagons of people's esoteric eschatologies. You must study apocalyptic literature properly, understand how they phrase certain things and why and how they were to be understood to the original audience. And of course, take Jesus at his word. Jesus says, I can come at any moment. Life will be going on as usual. People will be continuing to party, sex, playing football, matches, who knows. All of these different Olympic games would still be going on. All of these different, what you call it now? FIFA World Cup and the football, the Super Bowl, I mean, life would be going on as usual. You know, earthquakes will still be occurring. Governments will still be trying to take away our liberties or whatever it is that they're doing and still trying to protect us. And doctors and nurses will still trying to be save lives. Women would still be giving birth and we would still be doing what we're doing. And then boom, just like that, Jesus comes. This is what he is saying here, beloved friends. Just as in the days of Noah, life will be going on as usual. People will be distracted by all that is going on, not focused on the fact that they need Jesus. They need to have a firm foundation in him. They need to pay attention to what they're living for and why they're living for it. While all of that is happening, bam! Here comes Jesus. A trumpet blows, angels comes, unannounced. People are going crazy. He comes like the flash of lightning with power and great glory. And he comes to execute judgment on the wicked, but to bring his people to glory. This is what Jesus is saying here, brothers and sisters. And just before I continue, let me just pause quickly to hail up some of you who have just joined. Sister Marva Cummins, Pastor Shanique Beckford, chestnut filled. I'm not so sure who's that, but nice to have you. Sister Leonie Noble and all of you who just joined. As we continue, he says, who then, in verse 45, is a faithful and wise servant, whom his Lord has made ruler over his household to give them food in due season. Who will be that faithful and wise servant who's going to always be ready for his Lord to return home? He said, blessed is that servant whom his Lord, when he comes, shall find so doing. You see, in the ancient world, when masters of houses went on journeys, they didn't have planes back then. The fastest they could move was on the quickest horse. They didn't have cars. They didn't have these fast boats that we have and these other quick modes of travel. And so traveling 30 miles could take at least 3 days. Yeah. As fast as they can walk, as fast as the donkey can go, as fast as the horse can go. It takes some time. Some journeys can take up to 2 to 3 months, sometimes half a year. And so when the master would leave the house, whether it's a business venture or whatever he's going to do, or to bring some goods from a country to trade in his country to continue his wealth, whatever it is he's going to do, he would leave in charge a servant to manage his house and his property. And so if it's a good servant, because he would have no clue when the master would return. You see, the master part way on the journey, he could just return. And sometimes some masters would actually to test the fidelity of their servants, to know if they can trust them with their goods forever and submit everything into their charge. They would pretend like they're going on journeys, stay for a day or two, or maybe a week nearby, and just unexpectedly come to see how the servant has been managing what was left in his or her care. And so they would do these things. Jesus says the same way the masters work. They go, they come back unannounced. If the servant is good and he took care of the master's stuff, when the master comes back, he makes him ruler over all his goods. He leaves everything into his charge. So Jesus says, blessed is that servant whom when his Lord comes, he finds him a faithful steward. This is why Jesus says, occupy till I come. Be a faithful steward. Be a faithful steward in your marriage for those of you who are married. Be a faithful steward with your singleness for those of you who are single. Be a faithful steward in your job. Be a faithful steward in your ministry, because all of that has been entrusted to you by Christ. Yeah, it's not yours. Everything you have is borrowed goods. Be a faithful steward with the money God has blessed you with. Be a faithful steward with the house he's blessed you with the internet he has blessed you with. Be a faithful steward with the car, the family he has given you, both immediate and extended family. Be a faithful steward with the neighbors around you, the church family in which you operate. Be a faithful steward. Because if you're a faithful steward, he's going to make you ruler over much more at his return. So he says, blessed is that servant when the house master comes and he finds him faithful. He says, verily I say unto you, that he should make him ruler over all his goods. This was a custom in biblical times. But here's the contrast as we draw to a close, brothers and sisters. But if that evil servant shall say in his heart, my Lord delays his coming. Yeah, he's going to spend longer than I expected. You know, he said he's going to go for a week, but a week past the income, he's going to take a couple of months. And the servant now begin to smite his fellow servants. So he's fighting and beating up the fellow servants so that he can have his way, so that he can get the greater portion, so that he can pilfer the master's goods and do whatever he wants. If he begins to fight with the fellow servants, to eat, to drink with the drunken. So he takes the master's stuff and he consumes it upon his lust. He takes the master's entrusted goods and he's partying. He takes the income, the profit that would have been gotten from what the master left, to go party, to go drink, and to have a good time, to invite the wine bibbers and the hot boys and the hot girls, yes, to have a good party and a good time, because hey, the master has gone on a long journey. He's not coming back now. I'm going to have all the fun right now. And it's so sad, beloved friends, a lot of people, even those of us who claim to be Christians, who aren't really converted at heart, we do the same thing. We behave the same way. Look how long Christ said he's coming, but him can't come all now. And so we don't be faithful with our ministries and what he's given us, our careers and our jobs and our families and all of these different things we are blessed with. Instead, we consume them on our lusts, as James chapter 5 puts it. So he begins to drink with the drunken. Then the Lord of that servant shall come in the day when he does not look for him, unexpectedly, unannounced, pouncing unannounced, in an hour that he's not aware of, again, unexpectedly, and shall cut him in two, and appoint his portion with the hypocrites. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So here Jesus says we ought not to allow ourselves to fall in the category of the evil servant who was unprepared, who was distracted and consumed with what is going on around, and was not faithful in what the master had left with. He says this is how his coming is going to be. Life will be going on as usual, brothers and sisters. Everyone will be doing their thing. Things will be happening. Times of peace, times of chaos, times of war. Churches will be full, some will be empty. We will be continuing with life as usual. Some of us may be dead by then, who knows? But unannounced, unprepared, that is by the world, Jesus is going to come. People will still be gambling, he's going to come. Some of us will be sleeping, having nice dreams or nightmares, he's going to come. Some will be watching their favorite movies, he's going to come. Driving the car, he's going to come. Whatever it is people will be doing at the time, when the time for Jesus to come, it's going to happen. But he says, the servant who's wise and faithful, they will not be taken off guard, because they live with the paradigm and the understanding that my Lord can come at any moment, and therefore I live for the glory of God. My focus is on the things of heaven. And whatever it is that I'm doing in my occupation, I can't stress this text enough, occupy till I come. In the midst of my occupation, I live with a certain consciousness and alertness that Jesus can come at any moment. And that when he comes as his faithful child, I am ready. And this is how, beloved friends, he wants us to be in these end times. Always ready for his coming. Whether in death or life, we should be ready. Whether in wealth or poverty, we should be ready. Whether in sickness or health, we should be ready. Whether at home or traveling, as believers, we should be ready for the second coming of Christ, irrespective of the conditions of our lives and what we are doing and pursuing. We should always be ready. So as I close, brothers and sisters, it has been a wonderful time with you looking at Matthew chapter 24. And as I said, the talk continues with the entirety of Matthew 25, using different parables to speak about the same event, the last days and his coming. Different facets of it. And so I hope that you were tremendously blessed by this series. I'm sure, I'm very happy to would have facilitated this to shed more light on these issues for you. And I hope that certain fanatical notions would have been assuaged, would have been pushed aside, would have been cleared up to settle your mind in the Lord Jesus Christ. I hope that you would have seen how Matthew 24, this Mount Olivet discourse, deals with both Jerusalem in the 1st century AD, and also every time thereafter, straight into the second coming of Christ, and that you live and orient your life with the realities that Jesus spoke here. So thank you very much, all of you who would have joined me. I hope that the time was well spent. I hope that you would have had a great time. And of course, I hope you are very excited and anticipating Matthew chapter 13 sometime next week as we look at parables of the kingdom, parables that shed a lot of light on the gospel. And so again, thank you very much. I appreciated the time. And I'm going to give some time now for some questions in case any of you may have some questions you may want me to address from this passage. Please feel free to share or to ask. So I'm just going to scroll up a little to see if anyone have any question that they would want to ask so that I can address it. So are there any questions or input, my brothers and sisters, from this passage here, or what was shared, something you want me to elaborate more on? If so, please feel free to ask, and I'll do my best to respond to them as possible. Sister Dion says, all of those events that people claim would usher in Christ's coming is fair tactics and lack of proper biblical applications, in my opinion. Yes, Sister Dion, that is absolutely correct. The second coming of Christ is not held hostage by, Sunday laws, microchips, one world government, small groups being persecuted for what they believe and all of that. Christ's second coming is not held hostage to that. He can come at any moment, at any moment, whenever the Father says, hey, the time has come, whatever is going on, Jesus can come. And so definitely people do use them as fair tactics. They are currently using this coronavirus situation as a fair tactic, to keep people brainwashed, to keep them stuck and tied to their specific religious traditions and doctrinal tenets. People do these things, to frighten people. Fear is something that controls people. And so they actually do that. Somebody's asking, were you ever an SDA? I can tell you are new in connecting with me, Brother Craig Han. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Thank you for asking that question, and it's in the affirmative. Yes, I was an SDA. I was an Adventist evangelist here in Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. I was a theology student at their university here, Northern Caribbean University. I was a very popular, loved, had a bright future in the Adventist church here in Jamaica. But in my third year of pastoral studies there, studying and learning Greek, biblical interpretation, a lot of the things that I'm using historical context and background to lift scripture for you. When I learned that, as I learned those things, through a lot of studying, I realized that my Adventist faith could not be defended so vociferously as I used to. They call me Thunder. The nickname, yeah. Every connotation of thunder, that's why they call me that. Hyper, fearless, fiery, you name it. That's why they call me Thunder. And the name has stuck to this day. So yes, I was. And so I'm very familiar with the teachings and the theology. But I don't, say this to disrespect persons who may be on who are Adventists or who still hold to Adventism. You are free to hold what you hold, but just my experience and testimony where that is concerned. And of course, me sharing my perspective of biblical truths that may differ and disagree with the positions you hold. And of course, I'm free to discuss, to talk about these things. And Brother Craig, I have a lot of materials on YouTube on these issues. A lot of studies that you can check, debates, interviews, presentations, seminars that you can check on those Adventist issues if you're interested. You're an ex as well. Oh, great. You came out 15 years ago. It was about 4 years rather for me when I left. April 2016 is when I made my exit. So nice to link up with you, bro. Brother Greg Johnson, how are you doing, big brother? Elder Charles Albert Johnson, nice to have you as well. Again, thank you very much, guys, for joining. Are there any questions or input before I continue, or is everybody clear and copacetic with what was presented? Feel free to ask the questions, or let me know what you're thinking on the issue spoken about just before I let you go. But if there are no questions or no input, then of course I'm going to take my exit. Bid you all a wonderful evening. I will definitely see you soon, as the Lord bids me, as I prepare for next week. But as I said, keep us in your prayers, guys. Please keep my family in your prayers. Wifey's stuck in Canada. I'm stuck here with my two lovely children. The load is heavy. It's a lot. Homeschooling, chef, head cook, bottle washer, everything, as they say, you're responsible for doing everything. And of course, while I'm keeping myself healthy, I'm not the healthiest of persons. So, keep a brother in prayer that God will continue to strengthen me and keep me and the family safe so that he can use me a little more before I make my exit from this green planet. Yes. Brother Van Harris, you're going to have to catch the playback. You came at the tail end, so hopefully you catch the playback, and Sister Nadia Green as well. So if there are no questions, guys, I'm going to go now and let you enjoy your Saturday night with your families or whatever it is you're doing, watching a movie or something, or engage in a project. I wish you all the best. I pray that God bless you, keep you safe during this pandemic. And again, before I sign out, take all the precautions you need to. Don't take this thing lightly, This thing is very serious. It's claiming a lot of lives. A lot of people are being infected day by day all over the world. And so, do all that you can with the social distancing, your hygienic practices, washing your hands and stuff like that, to ensure that you are as safe as possible from catching this thing. Obey the authorities. They know what they are doing to protect everybody else, including yourself. So obey the laws and orders they give, the mandates they give. Please obey them. And as Romans 13 would advise us. And I do pray for you all a wonderful evening. Sister Ambra Jane Johnson, so nice to have you there. I do hope you have a wonderful evening as well. So good night, everybody. Get excited, be prepared for the parables sometime next week. So yeah, read them ahead, read Matthew 13 ahead, before we get into it, but you're going to love them. You're going to love them. There are so much nuggets in there that I know you're going to love. And look who's on last minute, my schnuggums. I'm just about to press finish, and here comes my schnuggums. I hope you are doing well and much better, schnuggums. I pray God keep you and keep your mind at peace, and you're focused and not be consumed, by what is happening, and not enjoy your time with the friends over there. So, hola uno. I love y'all. Good night, Brother Leroy. You're going to have to catch the playback. God bless y'all, and I pray for y'all a wonderful evening.